Okay, good morning to most of you. We will just take a minute or so to let people into the room and then get started. Thank you. I can see several familiar names dialing into the room, so thank you for joining us. Okay, I think we should begin. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar, which we're hosting alongside our long-standing friends and partners, the China-Britain Business Council. My name is Kevin Liu. I am the head of China and the head of energy for Asia Pacific at Scottish Development International. And for those who don't know who we are the Scottish Government's international economic agency with about 40 people in the broader Asia Pacific region. I split my time between the mainland and Taiwan, and I'm currently speaking to you from CBBC's offices in Shanghai. Now, today's topic is really what it says on the tin. We have been working with CBBC now over the past year on several of these webinars focusing on the Chinese market, but this is really the first time in quite some time that we are drilling down to the provincial level and focusing in particular on southern China. And here really we are primarily focusing on Guangdong province and also to an extent Fujian as well. I was in Guangzhou earlier this week with my Beijing-based colleague Helen Chen to visit two major developers slash tier one EPC contractors, and those being the State Power Investment Corporation and also the Guangdong Electric Power Design Institute. And it's very apparent that Guangdong's ambition to become China's #1 offshore wind market, both by installed as well as planned capacity, but as well as to build up its local supply chain into a base operating base for future offshore wind build out and development. And that ambition is very much apparent, and it's also very impressive. So this is really timely for us to then bring some of the market trends, key players, as well as where we see the opportunities being for Scottish companies going forward to you in today's format. And we have, as always, an excellent lineup of speakers. And you will first of all hear from Ivan Savitsky from the Carbon Trust, which has done a truly excellent piece of work looking at some of the supply chain gaps within the Guangdong market and broader southern China. And this is really particularly focusing on the operations and maintenance phases of a project, which I personally think there is strong potential for Scottish supply chain companies to plug into. We will then hear from two representatives from leading Chinese companies involved in offshore wind. First of all, Huadian Heavy Industries, and that will be Dr. Wei Tao Ma, who spent many years living and working in Denmark on offshore wind projects. And then finally from Tracy who represents Orient Cable, which is already well known to several of you in the Scottish market. We've glanced over really the housekeeping points. I think you can all recite that in your sleep, probably. We will have some time at the end for questions and answers, and please do feel free to start populating your Q&A and chat boxes with any questions that you have as we go through the webinar. And with that, I'll hand over to our first speaker, Ivan.
Hello, thank you, Kevin. I will just ensure that if you can just please confirm that you are seeing my slides correctly.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Perfectly, thank you.
In which case, thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to myself and others today. As Kevin mentioned, my name is Ivan Savitsky from the Carbon Trust. For those of you that aren't aware of the Carbon Trust, we're a sustainability consultancy which is headquartered in London, but we have offices in Latin America, in Africa, and in Asia, including in Beijing. And it was with my colleagues in Beijing that we conducted this analysis on the Guangdong supply chain. So I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to the project, define the problem in terms of Guangdong and its high level of ambition, as Kevin alluded to, discuss the Guangdong development pipeline and the areas and timeframes during which there's expected to be high levels of development. Have a look at the present supply chain in Guangdong, so those companies that are involved in delivering projects to date and at present, and then identify some of the constraints and potential opportunities for international parties or other parties to involve themselves in the Guangdong supply chain. So I'm not going to dwell on this slide, and especially long, but this is just to mention that the project itself was funded by the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and this is under the China Energy and Low Carbon Economic Programme, and we were supported by 2 Chinese partners in delivering this work. So this is the China Renewable Energy Engineering Institute, CREEI, and a company that Kevin just mentioned he was speaking to earlier, so the Guangdong Electric Power Design Institute, who are an EPCI contractor and also responsible for designing policy with regard to offshore wind and wider renewable energy in Guangdong. So defining the problem for Guangdong's offshore wind sector. As of the start of 2020, Guangdong had an installed capacity of about 198 megawatts of offshore wind. So really was starting completely from scratch. And by the end of 2025, this is expected to be around 15 gigawatts in capacity. So there's been a huge increase. There's a huge rush right now for construction of offshore wind projects. And this has caused a few constraints to the supply chain at present, and is expected to continue in future, as the industry certainly has not yet developed into an industry that's capable of installing such high capacities year on year. And the reason for this rush at present is because for those projects that aren't installed by the end of December 2021, they will no longer be able to access the national feed-in tariff for offshore wind, which at the minute is reasonably generous at around, in UK money, around 90 to 100 pounds per megawatt hour, and that subsidy will gradually decrease. And at present, there's no long-term plan beyond 2025 for that subsidy. But Guangdong has the most ambitious offshore wind targets of any province in China, and really is looking to take a lead in terms of offshore wind policy and offshore wind deployment. So by 2025, it's expected to be 15 gigawatts. There's a further target for 30 gigawatts by 2030, and a higher level of ambition rather than a formal target of around 75 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2050. Given the immaturity of the supply chain at present, there will be a number of constraints during the installation and operation of these wind farms. And within China, there's also a clear need to ensure that these installations are delivered to a high quality, to reduce the number of failures, maintain generation, and ensure that the largest amount of renewable electricity can be transmitted to shore as is possible. So there's a need to understand at a component level where these constraints are likely to be found, and this is the analysis that we've conducted. So a slightly more in-depth view into the Guangdong development pipeline. This chart on the left shows the predicted operational capacity of offshore wind in Guangdong between 2020 and 2050. So as you can see, at present, there are a couple of very sharp inclines in this, where there's huge rushes for construction. As policy changes, there's expected to be some delays in the kind of mid 20s, and then beyond, there's projected to be quite a consistent growth in offshore wind development and consistent installations. Clearly, the less jumpy that this curve takes is most optimal for the supply chain, so they can be consistent delivery pipelines for the supply chain as well. At present, we estimate that the 15 gigawatt rather target by 2025 will be met sufficiently. However, Guangdong is probably likely to not to meet the 30 gigawatt target by 2030 due to some of these constraints that we're mentioning. And project delay is the biggest threat to this deployment pipeline. So where there might be some inconsistencies in policy and potential policy that's not planned beyond 2025, as I mentioned, we see this as a potential threat. However, the ambition is clearly there. So we're fairly confident that Guangdong will be able to meet their ambitions. And here is a brief look at the investment pipeline that will be required to meet these targets. And significant investment will be required across every stage of the supply chain. Due to the labor intensity of this will create many jobs. At present, there's a kind of gap in the available workforce for offshore wind in Guangdong, which will need to be addressed either by local residents or by the use of international organizations. And there are huge capex requirements in order to meet these very ambitious targets. And you can see the peaks, which are the green bars of investment, can be kind of quite stark. So by 2040, upwards of 20 billion pounds per year, we expect to be invested in capex in offshore wind in Guangdong. And now a brief look at the current supply chain status, so the organizations that are delivering at present. So understanding Guangdong's supply chain present at a component level. So we have looked at the supply chain at a component level. So if you look at the snail chart on the right-hand side, we've looked at the sector of the supply chain with regards to DevEx, the development and consenting of offshore wind farms, CapEx, so the construction and installation, operations and maintenance, OpEx, and decommissioning. And where there are green components that are shaded in green, this is where we estimate that Guangdong has the capability and the capacity to deliver on their offshore wind targets with companies that are at present or planned. Where it's amber, we think that there's likely to be challenges, and where there are red is where Guangdong will be relying on certainly companies from other provinces in China or indeed from international organizations. And to kind of break that down at a component level, with regards to development and consenting, there's a number of high-profile developers that are active in Guangdong and have taken a lead on the projects and the pipeline that I shared on the previous slide. With regard to turbine manufacturing, Mingyang's probably the most notable OEM that's present in Guangdong, and has again taken a lead on delivering turbines for those projects. With regard to subsea cables and electrical systems, at present, Guangdong is reliant on other provinces in China. It's probably likely that the Chinese offshore wind market as a whole will be able to deliver those, but Guangdong might be reliant on other provinces until such manufacturers relocate to Guangdong, which I think is not too far away. With regards to turbine and foundation installation, again, that's a real strength in Guangdong. Guangdong has delivered the largest monopile in the world and has very good capabilities in this space. However, really where there is a huge gap is with regards to installation, ports, logistics, cable installation, vessels and equipment, and particularly during the maintenance, operations and maintenance of offshore wind farms. So there's a clear gap at present for which Guangdong we suspect will not lack a workforce which is able to deliver on such a large fleet of offshore wind projects, and certainly lacks the vessels and the other technologies that will be required. And I suppose a final point with regard to decommissioning, this very much not seen yet as a priority for offshore wind projects in Guangdong. So at present, there's very little activity. And however, I'd expect that those actors that are involved in the operations and maintenance space will be involved in decommissioning as the time arises. And at present, if we look at this chart on the left, shows the actors that have been involved in Guangdong's delivering Guangdong's farm to date. So where we have a dark blue is where it's been international organizations that are not from China. Where it's blue, it's China, but from provinces other than Guangdong. Where it's green, these are from Guangdong provinces. So you can see that in terms of international actors, there have been some successes for international organizations with regard to development and consent. That's probably been more upfront engineering design studies by international consultancies. With regard to balance of plant, there have been some notable successes, really with regard to things such as CPS, or smaller parts of the wind farm, rather than I suppose the bigger ticket items like the foundations, etc. And installation and commissioning, as I mentioned, at present vessels is a huge constraint. So there have been some international actors to be able to support that. But there is a preference for local companies, and whilst the local subsidy mechanism is being designed at a provincial level for the first time, whereas previously it was at a national level, and it's probably expected that this favouring of local companies will be increased. And this is just a breakdown of other provinces in China that are active in the Guangdong supply chain. And so no surprises really that the most prevalent provinces and with organizations that are supporting Guangdong supply chain are from other coastal provinces with an interest in offshore wind. So particularly Jiangsu is the highest, and which is the province with the highest installed capacity at present of offshore wind in China. And from Guangdong's point of view, I suppose a relative weakness in some neighboring provinces such as Fujian means that there's provincial export potential for Guangdong with regard to Guangdong supply chain companies. And just a quick look at some of the other constraints to Guangdong and Guangdong's offshore wind development. So here, we're looking at the peak demand for each life cycle stage within an offshore wind farm. So where we expect the peak demand for early planning is at present, as the pipeline is fairly well formed and developed at present, the project sites have been located. It's worth noting that the project sites that we're looking at for Guangdong to meet targets of up to 75 gigawatts are kind of relatively near shore and relatively shallow water from what we're, I suppose, looking at in the UK at present. So less than 100 kilometers from shore, less than 100 meter water depth, more around the kind of 50 meter water depth mark. So while there's an interest in floating offshore wind, it's probably not going to be a huge priority in terms of delivering those targets that I mentioned earlier, and the sufficient seabed that's nearer shore and shallow to be able to deliver those targets. But here, really, what this graph can be used to show is where there are likely to be the highest constraints. So with operations and maintenance, by 2042, there's going to be around nearly 80 gigawatts of offshore wind in operation. And around that time, we expect there to be the kind of highest level of constraint. And also worth noting that the other kind of main opportunity is near term, when the supply chain has had less chance to develop, but there'll still be almost 20 gigawatts, probably by 2025, of offshore wind. And at that point, the supply chain and the labour force will not have had sufficient time to develop to be able to meet that. And so really, I suppose the opportunity for international actors is either long-term strategy for when there's huge quantities of offshore wind, or in the short term before the supply chain has had time to develop. And I'll quickly just skip through the last couple of slides. And again, this is to mention that the potential workforce required to support Guangdong by 2030 there's around 190,000 full-time employees, and at the present, the ratio of job openings to job seekers in Guangdong is already 1.69. So there's already a huge shortage of the workforce as a whole. This is expected to be the case for offshore wind development. And there are a few additional supply chain risks that an international company should be aware of, or indeed a local company should be aware of. So I alluded to the local content rules earlier, and these are probably expected to become more strict. At present, there are no kind of formal local content requirements. However, as I mentioned, there's a chance that may change. The O&M supply chain is the key opportunity for international parties to involve themselves at present, whilst the Guangdong supply chain itself has not had the opportunity to develop. There are some new company barriers to entry, particularly for international organizations, with things such as cost incompatibility. I suppose the fact that there are fewer technical standards in operation in China, to which products and services may have been developed in Europe, for example. Supplier selection, again, can be a barrier. Whilst there are, as I said, whilst there are not formal local content rules at present, there is a preference, and that can be a huge challenge, and international competition. So China, other provinces are going to be developing offshore wind at probably a slightly slower pace than Guangdong, but there's likely to be a huge amount of competition from other European countries that are interested in China. So sorry, I've slightly overstepped the mark, but thank you very much. I hope that was interesting, and I will happy to take any questions at the end of this webinar. Thanks.
No, that's absolutely fine, Ivan. Thank you so much. And I'm really heartened by the fact that you actually set an alarm for yourself, which is great to see. So thanks very much again. Can I just ask you to answer Catherine's question in the Q&A box as the other speakers speak? And also just to address Ray's point about the need to find local partners. I think because of the way that the Chinese power markets are set up, it's likely that you would need a local agent to help you tender for upcoming projects, and this is certainly something that we can help you with. So if you're not in touch already, please do get in touch with the likes of Ian Ross and Helen Chen, who are on the call. And with that, I'll hand over to Dr. Weitao Ma from Huadian Heavy Industries. Mr. Ma, are you there with us?
Can you see my screen, Kevin?
Yes, if you could just make that full screen, and then please go ahead.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the CBBC giving me opportunity to introduce Huadian Heavy Industries. And today the presentation will introduce the Huadian Heavy Industries offshore wind power business. Today I have the full contents. It's a short introduction with HLI, and also our mother company, CHD, and also our business scope for the offshore wind. And also third part I would introduce what the record of our offshore wind project. And the last part is just what our strategy, and I will give some suggestion to the EU supplier what we find the supply chain in China. The first thing is a company introduction. I'm working for the HSI. It's a Huadian Heavy Industry, and which is a sub-company of the Huadian Group. The Huadian Group is the top 5 power developer in China, and ranking 330th on the global Forbes 500 in 2020. And the total number of employees is close to 100,000 employees. And HAI was established in 2008, and also our wind is one of our core business today. And actually, HAI and the Huadian Group actually do the power station developing, and 60% is a thermal power station. And today we try to go to the renewable, most of them, and according to Chinese power policy. We have the headquarters in Beijing, so if anyone wants to visit China, then can come to us. And the Huadian Heavy Group achievement from 2002 to 2020. So we have installed the total power 150 gigawatt of the power station, including all the thermal power station, hydro power station, and also the renewable power station. The electrical power is generated about 500 billion kilowatt hours, and also according to the equivalent to 100 billion euro. And we paid a lot of tax to the Chinese government also. And according to our business scope for the offshore wind businesses, we do the foundation production, construction. We also do the installation. And as meanwhile, we also do the substation production, construction, cable line, and supporting equipment R&D, and for our installation vessel, and the marine transportation, wind farm operation and maintenance. So far, we haven't do any decommission for the turbine because all the wind farm is quite new in China. And we have the manual facility. We own the full manual facility in China to the onshore and offshore wind industry. Our facility can do both monopile, jacket, topside, substation, and wind tower for the offshore wind business. And the largest and newest manufacturing facility is in Shantou, and we have the area is about 500,000 square meters. And the good things, we have the coastline about 700 meters. So that's meaning the large transporting vessel can be hunting here. And we do, and from the picture you can see we do the monopile. We made the largest monopile and back to 2018, and which is 1,600 tons. And also we do the harbor industry, harbor steel work also. And the main high cost resources of us is we own a lot of the vessel resources. And for example, the installation vessel, we have the Huadian 101. We 100% own this vessel. This vessel we bought it back to 2014. So it's our first vessel. And then we start to have a sign or share or rent the vessel Zhenjiang, Haiyang, Lichong, Guangdong, Boqiang, and also heavy HSI Boqiang 01 and 02. So they all can do the installation of the monopile and also the pile cap station. This is shown here. And also we do the foundation installation vessel also. And we have Zhongji 01. This is the largest vessel here. This is submarine vessel. So we use that for lifting the large monopile or jacket foundation offshore in the deep water. And then we also own the hydro hammer, the Mank 1900 and the IC 2000. Actually, we tried to buy another hammer from IHC 3600. We haven't ordered it yet. It's on the negotiation yet. So this is all our vessels using in China offshore wind business. So today in China, we present the 61 model of EPC. So this EPC, that's meaning we can buy turbine, rent turbine, and also do all the installation for the offshore in the offshore wind industry. So we can help our clients, the wind farm developer, do all the construction work and also manufacture. We have the entire team to overlay and make us project manager team and also health safety and quality team to check out the quality in different production. Yeah. And this is our record. So our mother company, CHE, China Huadian Group, we own the 3 offshore wind farms. We do the 3 EPC, of course. And the total capacity of offshore wind farm is 900 megawatts. So it's not so big, but it's quite okay. We do it in the last 3 years. So. And for the Huadian Heavy Industry, we mainly concentrate on the EPC contract. So far, we have the construct of the wind farm 6 EPC contract, and we also do the subcontract to the 16 offshore wind farm. So in totally, not this year, but from last year's, we have at least 400 monopile installation and 300 offshore wind turbine installation, and 5 topside and jacket production and construction, and 450 submarine cable line. So we do almost everything except produce the turbine. This is our HI and our company strategy in the offshore wind market. And first, we do the investment. Today, because sales, according to China's policy, are global warming issue, so we are concentrating investment for the renewable energy in Asia and also UK market. So mainland 80% investment in China, and 20% will be outside of China. And the second, we willing to do some EPC for the offshore wind, onshore wind, solar energy, and also the energy storage station. We had two departments actually who do the hydro energy storage station and also battery energy storage station also. And secondly, the third is we looking for transport partner for the good relationship to the local organization. That's meanings because we try to we're looking for some new project in in the south part of Asia, and who have the good relationship with the local government and get all the paperwork. And also this experience told us we have to, for example, if we set up a team in Vietnam, we prefer the local Vietnamese teams. And also we do the financial support, and both in China, because we are the largest group, in energy group, so we can easily do the financial support. But we're still looking for some financial support for the international bank. And also we set our local supply chain in close to the offshore wind farm. Last thing that we're also looking for the new technology in renewable energy. We set our team to EU and looking for the low cost energy solution and effective construction. So we want our installation team as fast as possible. And successful US supply chain in China. This is my experience. What is a good supplier in my view? So the first, all the EU suppliers should have the marketing view entirely, not only consider one gold cell or one cell or two cells. You have to strategy. First, the strategies, and you have to set your customer and how your sales strategy, sales team, and also what is the business plan and the water block network. That's all very important. So it's And second is the relationship. You have to set out good relationship with the local China and also local organization in the Asia. We also do that in Asia in other countries. The third part is the transportation story. This I list here because I faced some problem before. Actually, we almost signed the contract with the European product to China, but finally we lost the contract. One of the reasons is the transportation. According to the covers, the transportation line taken very long. According to production and transportation, it take more than 3 months or 4 months. But in China, a lot of policies they change very quickly. So some policy change, and they have to make a quick pipeline. And unless you are the turbine supplier or foundation supplier or vessel supplier, you have to make a very short supply chain. So that's meaning you need to have some storage in China. My experience is in China, one offshore wind farm is about it's about 50, I think it's close to 50 to 100 turbines, more or less. So you have to have the storage at least 20 turbines in China. Then you can sign the contract immediately. And the last thing is the technical support. In China, we also have a lot of suppliers. For example, Siemens, GE, Rambo, and also another company, and also IHC. They do really good. They have the technical support team in mainland China. They do teaching, training the engineer, and do a lot of good service. And since the technical team give us good feedback, then it's easier for the manager group to make a decision. So that is how you make a successful operation. Yeah. And I want to share something more. And yesterday, Helen called me that can I find how to make a supply chain in China? So I try to find here. So if you want to make a supply chain, you go to website here, this website. You type www.Huadian Group. TP is called the tender platform, whatever. So if click here. In this pages, you can see all the tenders in our group. For example, if you click here, this is announce of the tender. So in here today, for example, in today unfortunately we only have 4 announcements. So for example, it's not so good, no wind turbine. Then I prefer this one. This is solar 200 megawatt solar power EPC contract. For example, if I click here, so this lists all the information. So the announced date is yesterday, and the announcement report number. So it's mainly the location. Unfortunately, you have to find some employees who know the Chinese to read it. We don't provide the English version. So in this project, they describe all the requirement, and also the size of the solar power plant, and what the phase 1 is 65 milliwatt, and also requirement for the investment, in requirement of the tender, and so on, and the date to deliver it. So it's for this project, it's only a week to done normally. Yeah. And also you need to register in our web pages. Yeah. And
Okay.
all the other information. Yes. That's it. And
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Weitao, and particularly for guiding us through your procurement platform. I mean, if your company has a Chinese speaker, then fantastic. If you don't, then I'm sure between ourselves and CBBC, we could help you to decipher some of these tender documents and pick out the ones that could be relevant for you. And I think the message from Weitao was very clear. Huadian Heavy Industries is very keen to work with Scottish partners as part of its supply chain, and there may be different market entry routes for you to work with HHI, depending on whether you have a Chinese entity or whether you might need a Chinese agent to help you with tendering for project. And again, we can help you with picking some of that up, as can CBBC. And now moving on to our third speaker, Tracy Hu from Orient Cable. Over to you, Tracy.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
We could see a blank page and your mouse cursor, but not no content, I'm afraid, Tracy.
Sorry, let me try again.
And I can see Ivan busy typing away, answering questions. So thank you for that. And given that we've eaten into some time here, I do encourage you to type your questions into the Q&A box, and one of our speakers would answer by typing back, basically, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, hi, Kevin again.
You can see your slides now. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm Tracy Hu. I'm from Ningbo Orient Cable. So good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and also friends. Firstly, I would like to thank James Body from CBBC for his invitation, and it's also very a great pleasure to share my personal understandings in China offshore wind industry. Though I'm working for the overseas markets in regard to the also renewable in the UK and also in other countries. Okay, so I would like to share today is for 3 parts. First will be from in the a briefing of what we are and what we do. And secondly, I would also like to sharing the first floating wind project that we just delivered to the in China Southern Sea. And it is very typical and interesting case that it is the first anti-typhoon, which I would like to elaborate a little bit in the second part. And third part that I also would like to give some, thinkings and also my understanding, the opportunity and challenges for the supply outside of China. Okay, so firstly, there will be a few some numbers here showing who we are and what we do. We actually is a public company in Shanghai stock market since 2014, and the sales turnover in last year is around 667 million euro. Then now we are being the leading local subsea cable suppliers, and in the worldwide we're still in the top 10. So far we have delivered about 18 EPCI projects that including the cable supply and also the installation. 7,000 kilometers of the subsea cables has been delivered since 2005. And besides, we also have another names is for the umbilicals, that is mainly for the offshore oil and gas. So we are in the solo manufacturing in Asia. Besides, we are now, yesterday is a big news, big days of a company that we have announced to open the digital factories. They already finished construction, and yesterday the first day to have this opening ceremony. So to summarize, what we are is we are leading OEM for the subsea cable and umbilical, that we would like to differentiate ourselves by bringing the extra values to our clients worldwide. And this is a map that's showing the location in the Zhejiang province, and the Ningbo actually is the coastal cities in the east coast of the China, which is we think is quite close to Shanghai. In the right hand, the picture is showing the new facility, the digital factory that we just built up. And in this new facility, there will be a lot of interesting things like some digital technology and tools have been used, and we could, give the clients, some extra values by doing so. We have developed a lot of, monitoring systems that the clients would sitting at home, and also they could know very well about what happened for their orders in our factory. And beside this, we also have offshore T&I services. We have 3 vessels owned ourselves specifically for the cable laying. And this is current base. Also for the new production base, we also have a plan to be built in Guangdong province. So located in Yangjiang. Yeah, this slide shows you the 4 pictures. It is some typical products that we made. The first picture is showing the umbilical, and the rest part is subsea cable and also some land cable, which now we have delivered. We have the capability, and also we have delivered the world's first 500 kV subsea cable. Yeah, this slide is showing the map. It's what we have done in the past few years throughout. Besides the China market, that we also have some case that delivered in outside of China, like in Europe. We have delivered one. Our cable is now put into service in Scotland for the client's SSE. And also we are doing some R&D programs together with Turnet in German. We know that it's all driven by the technologies, and also there's no exception to the cable industry. So this is 2 R&D programs that we're doing. First is HVDC, which it is also a trend for the offshore development, especially in Guangdong province and also other forest ocean development of the offshore wind. The second one will be the floating wind project that we just delivered to China 3 Gorges. So we see this project in the chapter 2 that this will be a very typical case that we think that is due to the work closely with the stakeholders engaged, like the developer China 3 Gorges, and also the turbine provider Mingyang. And so also the foundations from Huishen is also in Ningbo, based in Ningbo. And also there is third party like DNV to have a very good collaboration. And we have identified a lot of risk and also set up the mitigations. Then we select the best option to do this project. So it has been seen as a first pilot project, anti-typhoon floating wind in a very shallow water, about 27 to 32 meters, and in very harsh conditions with a strong wind and also the waves. In this project, there is 5.5 megawatts turbines from Meiyang, and also it's a semi-submersible platform will be used from Huishen. So we have, in respect of the cable, subsea cable, dynamic cable designs, we have made this kind of the configurations in such a harsh conditions, and by a lot of the simulations by our teams. So you will see that from this part will be some dynamic, and the right hand we still have to keep the static. And in the middle, we should use some fast equipment to fasten on the seabed to keep it stability. This is a real cable that we delivered, and this is some data about the design of this cable. Okay, so moving to the next part is some opportunity and challenges. I think most of the information that we have been told by Ivan at the very beginning. So here I would like to sharing, some figures that I think it is will be not a long term, but in the next 5 years. I see that the target of the Guangdong province is only mainly for the Guangdong province. We'd like to have 18 gigawatts to be installed in the next 5 years, and also there's another goal to reach a fair price. Because there is no subsidies policies after 2024. So so far, the 4 gigawatts has been installed in this province till the end of this year, and also the next 5 years, 12 gigawatts is start construction, and maybe most of them could be, completed, as it is also driven by the provisional subsidy policies. That the project, if the project can be complete grid connection before the 2025, then there will be subsidy will be given to the developer. So this is in this area, the subsidy, they have differentials per year. In next year, there will be 1,500 yen per kilowatts. But in the next 2023 or 2024, there will be some reductions in the subsidy. So we think that probably in the next 2 to 3 years, you're still, the developer will still working hard to achieve more and get more subsidy. It's driven by the policy. Yeah. So previously I was being asked by the James that would like to share some stakeholders engaged in this area. So there will be very familiar name for the developers that I know will be like Chinese Three Gorges, and also the China generation for nuclear is also a very big developer, and also another one is Yuedian and Huadian, which Mr. Ma just worked for. So we say that we have delivered a lot of projects for them, and also a lot of cables being connected in their wind farm. In speaking about their design institute, because it is a main, it is a little bit different with the European developers. In China, the developer would like to subcontract, to select one contractor that they could do everything for them, and this by doing this is to have to avoid some financial risk, and also they also have some interface risk. So they would prefer to doing this to select one contractors to do everything. And there were 4 big contractors, and they are most of them are design institutes. Previously, maybe this name is not, this kind of organization or company is quite few in the Europe, especially in UK, because you have a lot of engineering consultant company. In China, the design institute, they are not only do the design engineering, they do a lot of things like purchasing, like do the as an EPC contractor. So there is 4 like Energy China in Guangdong province, and also Power China, HDEC, and another also from Power China's the CSSDI. And there's one more is belong to the China Three Gorges, SGIDI engineering in Shanghai. So this what from our perspective, this is a key players in the market. And they normally, if you want to go to see the customer, it's better also. It's a very key stakeholders that you have to be met with, and to be sure that you should be in their vendor before the project is coming, because they are doing a lot of preliminary design, and they will collecting a lot of data for that project. So in the tendering stage, actually they have some shortlist for their suppliers. So that will be necessary to develop your local network, and also agencies or your in-house commercial teams to work for that. Yeah. So this is the last page. I also would like to elaborate a little more about our thinkings, also our some tips here when developing the Guangdong province offshore wind farm. We have set up the localization in Guangdong, that we are going to build a new facility there, also the subsea cable manufacturing there. we understand that especially in Scotland, we also have this preference to localization. So there's no exception for China market, and also in Guangdong province. So they have heavily favored the local supply chain. So besides in the Guangdong province, we also have another center. We call this we build up ourselves offshore wind industrial center in Guangdong province. The purpose of setting up this center is to collect more resources of the supply chains that associated with subsea cables and also with some offshore wind. So we have people working there that they could provide some introductions and also to share the informations to develop some new technologies, or that will be beneficial to the developers for the future project. And secondly will be in this area, there will be more offshore wind projects will be in deep water. So HVDC will be a trend. And at the same time, because there will be no subsidies after 5 years or 4 years, so they have the developer have the pressure to have the cost down solutions. So they would like to prefer that lower cost but good quality. And another way that we're doing with collaboration with Design Institute and also some employer and universities to find some R&D programs, and you could work to develop some feasible products for specific projects to develop at the very beginning, and there will be increase your likelihood to be chosen in the later stage of the tendering stage. And the last part will be from the perspective of the government, because the local government also would like to have more investment to attract a lot of investment from outside of China, and they would like to build up the 4 supply chains. They are interested to have more new type of material and also some innovation technologies. And I heard that they also would like to attract some main bearings, the manufacturers, and also some gearboxes, and some is offshore substation platform associated technology, and some others like OM, operation and maintenance equipment, etc. I think especially in Yangzhou area, they have very open and attitude, very open to the supply outside of the China, but better to find the right route to do the localization. So it also needs some, should have some local teams to work on that. So this is what I want to share, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave in the chat box, and I'll try to help you to reply. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That was extremely comprehensive, and thank you for that overview of why these design institutes are so important in China for our supply chain companies. We are about a minute away from our scheduled close. So if you don't mind, we will skip over the Q&A section, although Tracy, if you wouldn't mind just replying to Tony's question in the Q&A box. And now let me hand over to my colleague, Ian Ross, for some final words and to say a word of thanks to all of our speakers. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ian Ross. I'm a trade specialist with Scottish Development International. And on behalf of China Britain Business Council and Scottish Development International, I'd like to say a big thank you to our speakers today, Ivan, Dr. Ma and Tracy. It was truly insightful into the Guangdong opportunities. We don't have much time, but the 3 things from each one of the presentations was that the Carbon Trust is reaching out to China to help with its carbon emission targets. Guangdong's got very ambitious targets in construction of offshore wind farms, and there is opportunities there in operations and maintenance. Dr. Ma, Huadian Heavy Industries are very experienced in large EPC. There seems to be an open invite to companies with new technology and low construction, and he showed us where to find the immediate tenders on the procurement platform. And Tracy Pichang Guanxi, a truly international company who's delivered in Scotland, so you're quite used to our accents, who looks at R&D and has an offshore wind industrial centre to help companies to find local content. If you're on this call from China, you can use your WeChat with the QR codes to find out more about SDI and CBBC. If you're looking for the slides, please can you email James Brody? The email is here. If you're looking for support in China, whether it's to find a partner, for help with vendor registration, help to find translators, help to be on calls to add to your credibility when speaking to potential partners, please can you get in touch with myself, Ian Ross, and Helen Chen. And before we leave, I just want to talk about two events that are coming up. The first one is a webinar series that is going to be delivered by China-Britain Business Council, looking at how the UK and China are working together towards targeting net zero. The first one is on the 16th of December, looking at energy transition, and the final one is on nature on October the 13th. I just want to talk about another webinar that's coming up on cost reduction in offshore wind. This is actually aimed at a Chinese audience. It's actually going to be delivered at 10 AM Beijing time, which is 3 AM in Scotland. But it really demonstrates how Kevin and Helen and the team at SDI and CBBC are trying to position Scotland. This is aimed at the Jiangsu Province Renewable Energy Association, and it will be the speakers will come from TORC, which is a JV between TUS, the Tsinghua University Commercial Division, and the ORE Catapult in the UK. And they're actually going to showcase three companies: Miros, Aileron, and Balmoral. And so the call is to anybody in the audience is if you want to be part of these kind of webinars going forward, please get in contact with us. So I'll wrap up there. For those in China, that's you heading home. For those in Scotland, go and get another coffee and look to see what you can do about coming to the Chinese market. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Thank you.